Welcome to the Teflon Tales. With me today, I have a guest. Let me search. Hey, there's no guest. So, this is going to be a short retrospective on the whole Teflon Tales journey. And in fact, I had uh, an option this morning because the originally scheduled guest could not make it because of a situation he encountered. And so I had this option of saying, hey, I'll probably skip today since I don't have a guest. But then I was thinking, I need to walk the Teflon life, right? So what is the Teflon Tales? Really, it's how we as human beings imbibe the characteristics of Teflon and use that in our daily life. So for me, this was okay. So I had got hot with the Teflon Tales with having a guest every week. Hey, there's no guest today. So I have to cool down. But then the other aspects of Teflon is the ability to balance and be flexible. So I said, hey, what options do I have? I've had 9 amazing guests so far. So this is a good retrospective for me to actually go back and say, why did I even start this thing? Like, what was the motivation behind it? So, anyway, so that was, again, my example of how I think I'm living the Teflon life. But let's start with something from the circus. And as I was racking my brains, this is the genesis of how this thing started, I think almost 10 plus years ago, right? So stay with me for a moment. I was working for a company, and there was this VP who had just joined and was making major changes in the company. And as luck would have it, that day, he and I were walking towards the EBC, or the Executive Briefing Center, for a customer briefing. And I was a product manager. I was pretty sure he had no idea who I was. But as I started walking towards the EBC, it's about a 5 minute walk. He looked at me. I was right behind him, and he saw my badge and said, hey, are you headed to the EBC? I said, yes. He said, hey, shoot any questions that you have. And I was like, okay, here's an opportunity. So there's this new VP who's joined the company. He's making major changes, and I have an opportunity to ask him. So I asked him, Mr. X, don't you ever have misgivings about the amount of change you're trying to bring into this organization? And he looked at me and said, have you ever been to the circus? I was like, just like probably you're staring at me right now. So what's this have to do with the circus? And I said, yes, I've been to a circus. He says, have you seen trapeze artists? I said, yes, I've probably seen trapeze artists. And he says, recollect as you walk with me how a trapeze artist is successful. So he or she actually has to climb up the ladder. And as they climb up the ladder, they start gaining momentum. And as they start to gain momentum, they have to get to the next ladder, which is the other side, but it's pitch dark. And what do they have to do? They have to let go. And they have to go in free fall, in darkness, with the confidence that everything that they have learned so far, the momentum, the flexibility, the balance, will allow them to get to the other side. So again, if you're with me, you would have caught already, right? So you have to be a good trapeze artist. You need to know how to go up and down. So getting hot. You also have to stay detached, aka you have to be able to let the ladder go and be flexible and be balanced, because you don't know where the next swing is and you have to get to that, right? And this happened many years ago. So for me, I think probably in hindsight that was the genesis behind the whole thinking of Teflon. But the whole idea also, in terms of where this is headed, is, even though that happened 10 plus years ago, across that journey, I started realizing that these were life truisms that as I got older, I started to imbibe within myself. And as luck would have it, I saw this, hey, LinkedIn Live thing is being launched by LinkedIn. This was probably a year and a half ago, right? And I decided to apply for it. And I put in my proposal and said, hey, I'm a podcast, I'm a writer, blah, blah, blah. Silence, right? And then about 3 months ago, I get a notice saying, hey, you're approved, you can go live. And I said, yes, I'm going to do it. Except then I had to hit the pause button. The pause button, why? Because I didn't know what I was going to say, right? It was one of those moments of saying, hey, I've been waiting for this and I want to go. And it's like, what do I have to share with the larger group? Because there are amazing LinkedIn Live hosts already who are doing an amazing job. What can I bring to bear? So I actually did not do anything except um, this post was actually going back and talking about my analogy to Teflon. So that's a small video that I did. And it started getting a fair amount of resonance. So I was thinking to myself, it's like, hey, why are people reacting to this? Like, what's in it for them that allows uh, people to want to come back and engage? And it was a kind of an interesting uh, cross section of people who are actually coming and commenting and liking this particular post that I'm sharing on the screen with you. And that was a post, like a 2 minute video on the Teflon analogy. So I kind of looked at it and said, okay, so maybe this is my cue. And again, the net of the video itself was what's on the screen, which is we all want to be productive and useful every single day, whether it's in a large company, whether it's in our own consultancy, whether it's your own entrepreneurship or startup, doesn't matter, right? We all, or most of us at least, want to show up every single day, wanting to be productive and wanting to be useful. But the second part of it is the part that I think sometimes, especially people who are passionate and who want to kind of give it all, sometimes forget is everybody is expendable. Everybody could be gone the next day. And for the longest time, at least for me, these things were in conflict with each other, right? Which is, hey, I can come and I can be passionate, but then I get wedded to the organization, I get wedded to the team. And I've also seen people who've had their shares of mishaps, aka layoffs. When they get into the next job, they're like, okay, I'm going to be at an arm's length because I put all my effort into the previous organization, and they just let me go with a day's notice. So the thing about the video was really being able to come to terms with the fact that, hey, you have to be productive, you have to be useful, you have to get hot and adapt every single day. But, and this is the hard part, right, which is how do you remain detached, how do you still maintain that sense of isolation, if you will, knowing fully well that, hey, you put in your best today, but tomorrow could be completely a different story, and maybe the company is gone, maybe the organization is gone. So I think that particular video for me was kind of the call to action, if you will, of doing something. And the doing something really resulted in, okay, so I've got this opportunity to engage with a live audience. Let me put that to good use. So that kind of started the story um, behind the Teflon Tales. But also, I think one of the things that I had posted in that video itself, which I think rings true now more than ever, is this fantastic poem by the amazing Rudyard Kipling. And there's one particular sentence over there which is called out, which is, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and toss a coin, and if you lose, start all over again. And for me, this is one of those poems that actually brings great joy, but also has such powerful life lessons. And this is exactly what the Teflon Tales is about: is, hey, you want to get hot, which is making a heap of all your winnings, but at the same time stay detached. It's like, you know what, yes, I've made a heap of all my winnings, but I'm going to toss a coin, and heads or tail. And if I choose heads and it shows up as tails, I've lost everything, but I'm going to start again, which is flexibility, adaptability, and getting hot all over again. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of the backdrop in terms of where this whole conversation started and why this Teflon Tales happened. But the other piece that I want to kind of just call out is the 9 amazing guests that I've had in conversation so far. And these are the 9 folks who've shown up and engaged with me in amazing dialogue: Miles, Michael, Katrina, Rashmi, Marcus, Faye, Jay, Alan, and Tom. That's so far. And today, like I said, it's just a quick retrospective journey on how this came about. And there is a pipeline of guests starting next Wednesday, and we'll continue that for a fair amount, long amount of time. But I am going to say this, which is just like what the Teflon Tales teaches us: is you need to get hot, which I'm trying to get right now with the show. but at the same time realize that, hey, if the audience changes, if the world changes tomorrow, you need to cool down and you need to move on, right? So I'm trying to kind of bring that into my own life and into this conversation as well. So again, just if there's one takeaway in terms of, hey, what is the Teflon analogy that we can keep in our lives, it's really the FDBF, right? And thanks, Rashmi, for helping me create this very succinct and memorable acronym. So F is getting fired up, just like any Teflon pan. You How do you get hot really, really quickly? So that speed aspect of needing to become productive, needing to become useful, is something that I think we can all embrace all the time, right? The second piece is D is for detachment, which is, like I mentioned before, which is how do you get fired up and stay detached at the same time? It's something that doesn't come overnight, doesn't come through going through a bachelor degree or a master's, or coaching sessions. It's something that life teaches you, but the sooner we realize that, the better. So that's the F and D. The third piece is the balance aspect, right? Which is, it's obviously things like the work-life balance, but also balance in a variety of different skills to be able to make sure they're adaptable. There's one thing this pandemic has taught us, is the need to reinvent ourselves is more important than probably it's ever been. And the last aspect is being flexible, right? And again, going back to my small incident this morning about the guest not being able to show up, and me thinking of options of saying, hey, should I not do it? Should I adapt it? And then just putting a mirror in front of me and said, okay, how do I be flexible? And say, hey, there's a 5:30 p.m. thing that I've committed to doing, and the guest hasn't shown up, but I've had 9 people show up, and it'll be a good kind of quick 10-minute walk down memory lane and retrospect in terms of why this is happening in the first place. So again, I'll leave you with that. And this was always meant to be one of those short intro, retro LinkedIn lives for the Teflon Tales. And I give you my commitment. I'm going to be continue doing this as long as there are guests and as long as there's resonance. And hopefully you get to interact both live, if it's possible at all. I know we're all distracted and overwhelmed, so it's probably asking for too much for a lot of people to show up every single week. But what gives encouragement to me and my guests is the follow-on dialogue that happens many times afterwards. So again, thanks for that. Thanks for the support, and talk to you next week, same time, same place. Ciao.